Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of NB8 right here on Wood TV. Plus, Phil Pinarski here once again, joined by AJ Evans. AJ, it is so good to see you again, and I'm so excited and very thankful to have you on today, especially as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday.
Of course, man. This is the best time of the year, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Phil.
You know, and with it being Thanksgiving, we, of course, are going to have some fun with today's show. We've got a really fun segment towards the end that we'll get to in a little bit, and again, kind of show our appreciation for the NBA being back once again. But we want to, of course, talk about the Pistons, who are currently on a 13-game winning streak. They keep winning. We have not had to talk about a loss in quite a few episodes now, AJ.
Oh, yeah.
But before that, let's talk about Chris Paul. The big news coming out of the NBA this week, obviously being that Chris Paul, 12-time NBA All-Star, 11-time All-NBA selection, former Rookie of the Year, currently on the Los Angeles Clippers. He's been in the league for 21 years. He is going to be retiring at the end of this season. Kind of the end of a huge moment for the NBA, a huge draft class, you know, that wave of player, the era of players. You know, I remember watching Chris Paul as a rookie, and now knowing that he's still in the league, one, is impressive, but then knowing that it's coming to an end, a little sad too.
It is. It's the end of an era, and it's a bit strange for me, Phil. I don't know how it is for you, because like you said, you grew up watching these guys and you think they're just going to play forever. And then when they say they're retiring, you're like, man, they're getting old, but I must be getting old too, right? You know, because just
reaching
feels,
unk status.
Yeah, it feels like just like a few years ago, these guys were dominating the league. But no, in all seriousness, Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards, one of the greatest players to ever play this game. He had a phenomenal career. It's unfortunate because I felt like throughout the duration of his career, there was always this cloud hanging over his head and his legacy that, he couldn't win a championship and he couldn't lead a team to the finals. But it's incredibly hard to do so when you're a 6-foot guard. You know, I think if you're not 6'3", if you're 6'3", or shorter than 6'3", it's very, very difficult. And only a few guys have really been able to do it. But he was the engine for so many great teams. He was one of the greatest point guards of our time. And he's had a phenomenal career. And I think someday he'll make a great head coach if he decides to go down that path as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a Grizzlies fan, you know, we have our own past history with Chris Paul, dealing with him in the playoffs when he was a member of the Clippers. But that's the one thing I've always really loved about Chris Paul. You know, as much as I didn't like playing against him or, you know, I enjoyed rooting against him, it was the fact that no matter which situation he was put in, I mean, he made an impact. I mean, whether it was on the court or off the court. You think about when he first started, when he was playing for the New Orleans Hornets. Again, those are two different teams now. But when he was on the Hornets, I mean, he was leading that team to a top seed in the Western Conference in the mid-2000s when you had the Spurs, Kobe Bryant and the Lakers, Tracy McGrady and the Rockets. I mean, you had all these different teams, and he was leading the unknown Hornets to the playoffs and you know, taking the Mavericks to you know, throughout that series and everything in that 2008 season, I believe. And then he goes to the Clippers and, you know, with Lob City, and they have their great run. Then he goes to Houston, and they are, again, really great. And then he goes to OKC, and that's something I don't think a lot of people really talk about, is the fact that he got to OKC before they became the Thunder. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, think that he played a role in getting to them where they are today. Then he goes to Phoenix, and we saw that one time he did make it to the finals was with the Suns and Devin Booker. Then he goes to the Spurs and helps Wemby. And now he's finishing it up, you know, one last ride with the Clippers. Is there a version of Chris Paul that you really enjoy, AJ?
Oh, man, so many. Chris was one of my favorite players growing up. I studied his game. I watched as many highlights of him as I could find. I watched as many games as I possibly could. I think the thing that's most impressive to me is his willingness and his ability to adapt over the course of his career, because the game changed tremendously from the time he entered the league to now where he's exiting. But I mean, when he was in New Orleans, you know, he was super athletic those first few years. He was always looking to push the tempo, get out in transition. He absorbed contact really well, finished at the rim really well. And his jumper was always there, but it wasn't as solid, I think, as it would be later on. And then towards the latter half of his time in New Orleans, he had a really bad knee injury, missed some time, but came back and was still just as productive, but in a different way. All of a sudden, he started relying a lot more on his mid-range game. And then somewhere in between that time, he also just became a pick and roll maestro. And he was able to just carve up any defense. He was able to make any read, regardless of the big he was playing with. It did not matter. He was going to make the right read and get his team a good shot or 2 free throws at the line. He was always ready, willing, and able to do that throughout that point. And then obviously he goes to Los Angeles and it makes the Clippers cool again, which was insane to see. They were the team to watch at one point in Los Angeles, which was unheard of and unprecedented before that. So I think for me, I would say those New Orleans years, and also too, I think you have to give a lot of credit to those Houston years. He was phenomenal there. There were so many question marks about how he would fit alongside James Harden, and the fit was seamless. And I remember Mark Jackson saying something when I was watching one of their games. He said, they are the only team in the league and possibly in league history that have Hall of Fame point guard play for 48 minutes a night. Because if one of those guys is on the floor, they're making reads that nobody else pretty much in the league can at that point. You remember Harden was a phenomenal playmaker in his own right towards his final years in Houston. So there are so many different versions of his career, which I think makes it even that much more impressive. Obviously, like you said, he took Phoenix to a finals and they ultimately didn't end up winning, but I think the thing that needs to be remembered most is that winning followed behind his arrival every single time. He was always contributing to a team winning and being near the top of the West, and he deserves so much credit for that. And even though he couldn't win a championship, it doesn't make a difference in the fact that he's a winner. And not to mention, like you said, the things he's done off the court. Team CP3 is one of the premier AAU programs in the nation right now. He's helped so many kids, some of those kids who are in the NBA now, and he's given back to everywhere, every franchise he's played for. So just a phenomenal player, terrific human being, great role model. And I was fortunate enough to watch him.
Yeah, no, again, very happy that it's all kind of culminating in Los Angeles. I feel like that is where he really made the claim as one of, if not the best point guard in the league. I mean, with Lob City, he didn't really have to do a whole lot, but he was the catalyst for that offense. Throwing up lobs, getting guys open for three. I mean, he was doing it all. And again, that team was so much fun to watch, and it would not be even remotely as good without Chris Paul. So again, very happy with that. But I got to ask you, we touched on that. Despite all the legacy he is leaving behind, it does sort of feel like maybe there's a lot of what ifs, with Chris Paul. What if he did win an MVP? What if he did win a finals? What if David Stern didn't block the trade to the Lakers and he was with, Kobe and possibly Dwight Howard and Pau Gasol and kind of all that line? I mean, that probably would have been a huge upgrade. We know what happened with that trade, him eventually going to the Clippers, but that would have been incredible to see. But as far as his legacy goes, as it stands, unedited and without the what ifs, I mean, where do you see him kind of ranking amongst the league's all-time point guards? I mean, the logo of the NBA is a point guard. We've got like people like Steve Nash, like I said, who's won multiple MVPs. We've got guys like Isaiah Thomas, who has led his team to multiple championships. Chris Paul doesn't really have that. I mean, where do you kind of rank him as far as point guards go?
Well, first off, Phil, I think we have to talk about the trade, the veto trade. That was
probably the most crazy part of his story, and it didn't even happen.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, to me, now looking at it in retrospect, it's even more impressive that he was able to go across town and lead the Clippers to dominance, I think, in the Western Conference for an era after that. But if that doesn't happen, I think they won a title. I do. Right. I would have loved to see a Kobe Bryant, Chris Paul backcourt. Those two guys are some of the most competitive players to have walked this earth, and I think they would have terrorized teams alone. And then, like you said, you add in whoever they would have added, because I'm sure the team would have had to look a little different with those two guys. You would have needed some more complementary pieces, but no, going off of the second thing you said, Phil, where does he rank all time? I think he's a top 10 point guard. The top 5 is a little crowded, gets a little difficult. Like we talked about earlier this morning, for me, Isaiah Thomas always will be in that top 5. And I use Chris Paul, John Stockton, Steve Nash, Allen Iverson, those guys as examples. It's extremely hard to win being the engine of a team when you're 6'3" or shorter. It's really difficult. And Steph has obviously been able to do it for a handful of years now, and the Warriors have been a dynasty in their own right. But Isaiah Thomas took the Pistons to 3 finals appearances and won 2 titles. And he doesn't get a lot of credit for that, I feel like, outside of Detroit. But Chris Paul in his own right, I think, has been this generation's Isaiah Thomas. He hasn't been able to win a ring, but it doesn't matter. Winning, like I said, has followed his arrival everywhere he's gone to. And in my opinion, he's a top 10 point guard. I will put him just outside of that top 5. So yeah, just like I said, terrific player in his own right, and I think he's going to be a remarkable either head coach or executive too, if he decides to go that route either.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got him in my top 10 easily. And I think, again, that does kind of go to show just how great of a player he is. The fact that he doesn't have the championships or the MVPs, and he's still considered a top point guard, maybe top player, period, of all time. So, again, while I may have had some issues with Chris Paul during his playing career, definitely glad that he is getting his flowers right now. And hopefully he has a very happy retirement. But let's move on to the Pistons now while we still have some time, AJ. Again, 13-game winning streak. Unbelievable. Fun fact for everybody before we get into just the only 2 games that we have to cover in this last span between episodes. They've won 13 games in a row. That is tied for the franchise record. Now, they've only done that, winning 13 games in a row, twice before. That was in the 2003-2004 season and in the 1989 and 90 season. And what do those 2 years have in common? Well, that was the year that the Pistons hoisted the Larry O'Brien Trophy and won the NBA Finals. I'm not saying that history is going to repeat itself this year, but knowing that we kind of have that backing of, just seeing like this team dominate throughout the season and go on these long win streaks, that it does kind of pay off in the end for Detroit.
Oh yeah. This team's on the right side of history right now. It's just been phenomenal. And I think to see the manner in which they're winning, Phil, has been even more impressive. They're defending, they're moving the ball really well. They're doing things that are really sustainable. This is by no means a fluke. And I don't think anyone thinks that, but if you do, I'm not sure what you've been watching. But this, like I said, they're doing all of the little things really well. They're rebounding well. Their shot making has been timely, but just beyond that, they're playing together. Things have finally come together. This is a young core that has developed and that has become really cohesive. And I think Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson, those 2 guys have been instrumental too. In their first seasons in Detroit. Yeah,
no, it's great to see that all of these offseason additions are actual additions. There was some worried about maybe replacing some of the guys they lost. I mean, Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson have been 2 incredible pickups for the Detroit Pistons, and clearly we can see they're on that 13-game winning streak. I want to go over just those 2 games that they had since the last episode. They, of course, had a few days off and then traveled to Milwaukee to take on the Milwaukee Bucks. They beat them by 13 points. No Giannis in that game, but a big win off the road, off that long break. That was something that you were kind of concerned about, AJ, was would they be able to kind of come back from having those days off? Tobias Harris in his return, he was a plus 25 in that game, and a near triple-double for Cade, 29, 8, and 10. Typical stuff for your point guard there. And then they just last night beat the Pacers by 5. That was a scarier game. I did not think that was going to happen. Again, the Pacers kind of in that downward spiral right now as far as this season goes, with all the injuries that they're dealing with, and just a whole lot of turmoil going on in Indiana right now. But Jaden Ivey was back. He was back for that Bucks game too. So again, really great to see him kind of back out there getting his legs underneath him. He had 12 games in this game. And one thing I really wanted to highlight was the uniform matchup in that game. I love those City Edition jerseys for both the Pistons and the Pacers. So I'm glad they both wore them for that game. But yeah, I mean, just not much you can really say just about these wins. I mean, they're doing it kind of the same way with defense. And you'll have your stars pop off when you need them, but again, I think it's less of they're finding out ways to play together, and more so they're finding out ways to beat these teams. I think that is kind of what it's become for Detroit. Yeah,
they're just finding different ways to win every night. Whatever the case may be, I feel like they're exploiting the opposing team's weakness, whatever it is, and just harping on it. I do think they're letting teams linger a little bit. It doesn't feel like they're putting teams away. And I know that may sound a little too, entitled, but as a fan. But no, I think that Indiana game was really indicative of that. The Pacers upped the intensity, and Detroit kind of remained lackadaisical, even as Indiana started making shots and as they started applying a little bit of pressure. But overall, this team is still doing really well. There are some little things you can pinpoint. I think the Pistons rank near the bottom. They're 29th in free throw shooting percentage right now. So got to make free throws. Those are free points. And then they're still not shooting the 3 ball that well. They're near the bottom half of the league. in that category as well. And Cade is not shooting particularly well. He's still shooting less than 30% from behind the arc. But obviously he's doing everything. He's dominating. So once that comes together, I have no concerns it will. I think he's just gotten off to a slow start this year. But the crazy thing is, like I said, is that they're not making as many free throws as they like. They're not making as many threes, and they're still winning games handedly. So when shots do inevitably start to go in, it's going to be even scarier. You just got to hope that defense, rebounding, those things do not diminish with shots being made. But they have been terrific. And this supporting cast deserves a lot of credit, Phil. We've given Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham their props almost every week. But when you think about what everyone else is doing, when you think about Dennis Jenkins, Paul Reed, Isaiah Stewart, like we said, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, it's been terrific to see what these guys bring to the table every single night. Javonte Green, Ron Holland have both been exceptional in their own rights. All those guys defend. They're athletic. They run. And they're willing to do all of the little things that may not show up on the box score, but that result in W's. And that's a testament to, like I said, this culture and what's being built here in Detroit on every night. So, and like you said too, Jaden Ivey looks really good.
Yeah.
He looked aggressive. He still looks like he has the explosiveness.
And he's missed so much time. So just seeing him kind of just jump right back into it is great.
It is, yeah. And I think the thing that I was most impressed with is he hit the floor hard a couple of times last night against Indiana, and he wasn't fazed by it. He got right back up and he kept playing hard. He didn't seem discouraged or fazed by anything. And so that's a really good sign, given that, I mean, he had surgery less than 3 months ago. So really excited to see how he blends in and how he fits into everything. And I think this team has a lot more wins left on this streak, Phil.
Yeah, no, we talked a lot about the streak and kind of the upcoming schedule last week. And again, looking kind of promising for the Pistons there. And that was one thing I also wanted to touch on that you kind of hammered home, was the fact that Jaden Ivey is looking really good. But I do want to ask you, AJ, with Jaden Ivey kind of coming back into the fold there, is there any worry about maybe messing with the rotations that they've got going on right now? I mean, that again, it's kind of like complaining about having too much money or something like that. Like we have too many blessings on this team right now. We've got too many guys that deserve minutes, and there's only 48 minutes. You know, you can only play 5 guys at a time. There's only one ball. I mean, is there any worry, at least in your mind, that once everybody is back to being healthy, everybody is competing for minutes, that there is going to be maybe a little bit of animosity and maybe the vibe shift a little bit at Detroit?
You know, I don't think so, Phil, because I think Jaden Ivey still has to ease his way back into this rotation. I mean, this is a guy who has spent a lot of time on the sidelines in the last couple of seasons. So I would really like to see JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff and the team's doctors be really patient with his progress. I don't want to see him rush back too soon. And I know he feels he's ready to go. He looks ready to go. He looks good. But I think you have a really good rotation in place. You have good guard play. Let him take his time and get back into this, and let him find his own rhythm on his own time. So I'm not too worried about it. I think he should still be on a minutes restriction for as long as they feel is possible. And then from there, when he inevitably does get off of it and when that gets lifted, you have more room to work with. You know, 48 minutes, that's a lot. And this team is really intense. You know, they play really hard on both ends of the floor. So if you have 12 guys to use, then you might as well go ahead and use them. Everyone wants to get on the floor. Everyone wants to contribute and do what they do best. So I don't think you can have too many guys in a rotation that plays this hard every single night.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. And again, I'm very curious to see what those playoff rotations are going to look like for Detroit. But let's shift gears now and do some fun, or have a little bit of fun today, AJ. You know, we're approaching the Thanksgiving holiday. By the time this episode goes up, we're probably only going to be a couple of hours away, or from the time when people are watching it, a couple minutes away, maybe even from digging in on their Thanksgiving meals. And the important thing is to always give thanks and kind of remember that this is the time of year to be grateful for the things in our lives. You know, we had a doctor from Priority Health on the Daily 8 earlier this week talk about that being grateful actually has a lot of health benefits. So with that being said, let's be grateful for a minute, AJ. Who on the Detroit Pistons, or something about the Detroit Pistons, are you most grateful? We're grateful for a lot of things, I'm sure. But is there one thing in particular with this team that you're super grateful for?
I talked about the supporting cast, and I'm grateful for them. Since I already spoke about them, I'd like to highlight JB Bickerstaff. I know I've given him a lot of credit, but I'm very grateful for him. I think head coaches oftentimes are kind of like in a thankless position, especially in professional sports, because when things inevitably go awry, they're the ones that are shown the door first, probably. But when things go well, a lot of the credit goes to the star players or even the front office, and they're kind of left as the middleman or the forgotten one within all of that. But JB Bickerstaff has come into Detroit, and he's really just, I think, reestablished a culture that has been here in previous generations, but that the team has really been without for quite some time. But the same principles that I think got the Bad Boys to where they were and that got those Chauncey Billups-led teams to finals appearances are still well and alive here today in Detroit. These teams still defend well, they rebound well, and they make shots when they count. And I think that's, like I said, it's a testament to what he and this coaching staff have built. He's gone to war for these guys. You know, he does not take it easy on referees every single night. You know, he's unafraid to get a tech. Right. And he always has his players' backs. And I think that's the thing that I respect the most about him. I've never seen him demean a player or talk down on anyone in a press conference or anything like that. I mean, outside of referees or the association as a whole. But he's gone to bat for these guys. And I think he's really rooted himself within the city and the culture, like I said, that had been instilled here before. So I'm very thankful for him and what he's been able to do. He's doing a fine job, and I know he's going to keep up the great work.
Yeah, incredible job. Always really appreciative of JB Bickerstaff. One guy I'm really thankful for, though, is Paul Reed. I just love Paul Reed so much. He's for some reason, there's just something about his game and just his scrappiness that I just really love. I mean, he's willing to do whatever it takes. When he was on the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, he was getting almost no minutes and then had to be thrusted in when Joel Embiid went out. And I was like, that's a guy that a lot of teams should be kind of looking at. And I'm glad that he ended up in Detroit. He's been there the past couple seasons. And yeah, every time he checks into the game, I just, there's something about when those guys you root for, those role players, start actually getting minutes and also playing very well, that, I don't know, there's something, it's magical, really. I just love it so much.
No, and he embodies, I think, everything that this team was built upon. Like, he's unafraid to guard anybody or do anything. And he's quick to talk to anyone, too. You know, he's completely unafraid, and I think he's one of the intimidators on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's keep the fun going, because this is something that we talked about last week that I'm very excited to be kind of sharing with everybody. Thanksgiving meal. What do you've got on your plate? You obviously got the turkey, maybe even ham. I'm a turkey guy, though. So you got the turkey. You've got all your sides, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, stuffing, dressing, cornbread, everything. And then, of course, when it's all said and done, you're going to have your pie, your desserts, to kind of finish the night, end it on a good note, come home with a win. So we figured, why don't we kind of personify all of those different foods into NBA players? So you've got your turkey, that's the guy you're building your team around. Who is that one guy on your team that is going to lead you to the promised land, win you a championship? AJ and I are going to be going through that with all-time players. We said we were going to open it up to all-time players for this. So AJ, let's start off with the turkey, and we'll move on to the sides and the dessert at the very end. Okay. Turkey, who is the guy you're building around?
Yeah, the guy I'm building around, I think there's only one correct answer. It's LeBron James.
Yeah.
LeBron James. He does it all. He's a franchise guy. He took his hometown team to the NBA Finals within 4 seasons. He's that guy. He's always been that guy. Wins are going to follow. Like I said about Chris Paul, wins will follow wherever he goes when he arrives. And he's going to do everything that is needed. He finds ways to work alongside any other star players. He's selfless. At the end of the day, all he wants to do is win, and he's going to do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a big debate on, Jordan or LeBron or anything like that. Yeah. I'm actually going a different route, though.
Okay.
I thought about LeBron heavily because, like you said, he kind of is the epitome of an NBA basketball player. But I am going to go with Magic Johnson because I think for that size, at the point guard position, the passing ability, he's the guy that's going to get everybody involved, and his defense never gets talked about. Thought he was, he's a fine defender. Yeah. I'll take it. Yeah. And I think, there's no shooting threes maybe is the one thing that you can kind of knock him down on, but I've got some 3-point shooters on this team, so don't worry about that. But I'm going Magic Johnson. I do like that, and we've even seen it. I mean, as a rookie, he was able to play 1 through 5. He can guard any position, so I liked him for the defense. I liked him for the playmaking. That's why I'm going with Magic Johnson.
I like it. I like it. I didn't expect that. I
Yeah.
just knew you were going to say Jordan, but I like that. He's somebody you can definitely
Yeah.
build a franchise around.
I tried to avoid, the quote unquote GOATs just because, it'd be easy to just, give me Shaq, give me Kobe Bryant, give me LeBron and Michael Jordan. Just give me all the good guys, right? Try to fit it into theme a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to some of the sides now. Mashed potatoes. Okay. Now, this is how I kind of worked it out in my mind. So mashed potatoes, they personify consistency. Everybody can eat everybody likes mashed potatoes, but potatoes themselves are just very versatile. You can have them as French fries, baked potatoes, so many other things. So I wanted a guy that was consistent, a guy that I can always rely on, and that's why I'm going with Tim Duncan for this. Mr. Fundamental.
Oh man,
did you also pick
yes.
Tim Duncan? Okay, all right. Well,
I got another one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going with Tim Duncan though, just because of the consistency factor. Mr. Fundamental. We all know it. I think him and Magic Johnson already. I love this team.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I really like that. I think Tim Duncan fits on any team, any era, regardless of who's around him. He's going to probably give you 25 and 10, maybe even 30 and 10, or 30 and 12. Like, prime Tim Duncan was a problem on both ends of the floor. But I had another guy before I listed Tim, and I think this guy gives you that same kind of production, obviously in a different form. He's a little more fiery, I would say, but he's very steady, nonetheless. I'm going with Kevin Garnett.
Okay,
I think
love that.
He's as steady as they come. He's once again another guy who's played for a handful of teams in his career, but he just finds ways to win, and regardless of the fit, he's going to make it work. And he's going to get wins in the process. So he's the guy I'll choose for my mashed potatoes since you chose Duncan.
Yeah, no, he's great because not only are you getting that offensive production, but also the defensive production as well. Oh, yeah. Moving on to dressing now. Now, growing up, I called it stuffing. I'm now learning that there are differences between them. But for the sake of this, we're making them the same thing. So dressing and stuffing, the way I read it was it's not for everybody. Some people don't necessarily like dressing. It may be they don't like it with certain foods, just in general with the holiday, the way it was prepared, maybe they're not a fan of it. But, when it is good and when people like it, I mean, you want to have more of it. You got to keep having it. So, it's maybe not somebody that you would think about too often, but if it's hitting shots, as I'm kind of alluding to, then you're definitely going to want it. And that's why I'm going with Reggie Miller. Ooh. I like Reggie Miller with this pick. Again, another guy, he's going to get you a shot anytime you need it. And obviously, there are people that don't necessarily like Reggie Miller, especially while playing. But I think realistically, I would not want to have another shooting guard on this team. Maybe Michael Jordan, but again, I try to avoid that a little bit. Yeah. I like Reggie Miller. I think he's going to be the perfect three-point threat that we need for this team.
Yeah, I really like that pick, Phil. And I think Reggie Miller was somebody that people love to hate. And people kind of feel that way about dressing too, I think.
Yeah.
They just, people are really...
You see where I'm trying to go with this in my mind, right?
It has to be, I feel like this has to be like a polarizing player, which is kind of what leads me into my next thing. And this guy was, I'd say, maybe even more so polarizing off the floor than they were on the court. You couldn't deny their production when they were on the floor, but they were a shot maker in their own right. Not necessarily streaky. They were pretty consistent as well, but people loved and hated this player throughout the duration of their career, and I think they're one of the most misunderstood players in NBA history. I'm going with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Ooh,
yeah, I really like him.
Okay.
I think he's going to give us a lot of production. He's obviously going to rebound. And then when we need a bucket, we can, throw the ball to him on the post and he'll take care of it, whether it be with a sky hook, a turnaround fadeaway. He had a lot more to his arsenal than people think. You don't get to the NBA, top of the NBA scoring list with just one shot in your repertoire. You got to have a lot to you. So I'm going with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Your front court is LeBron James, Kevin Garnett, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Pretty
that
crazy.
is incredible. All right, love that pick. All right, I'll let you handle mac and cheese then. Again, my favorite Thanksgiving side dish. Obviously, the way I kind of look at it, I don't know how you looked at it, but the way I looked at it, and I'll let you make your pick first, is, mac and cheese, it can be kind of heavy. And the way people react to mac and cheese recipes, if it's your recipe, it's your family legacy, you've been making mac and cheese the same way, you love it. You can't wait for it on Thanksgiving. Yeah. If you're going to somebody else's Thanksgiving and they make mac and cheese even a slightly bit different, it's going to change how you really react to it. So again, it's kind of a guy that I love when I'm on their team, but a guy that I would hate or maybe not necessarily gravitate towards if they're on another team. So that's kind of how I saw it. I don't know how you kind of envision mac and cheese in this scenario.
Yeah, for me, Phil, I think this has to be the point guard. Has to be somebody who's going to keep things steady. Obviously, mac and cheese is a big part of the plate. It can make or break the plate in some households. So it's a pretty big deal. And for me, that's why for my mac and cheese, I'm choosing Pete Maravich, the Pistol. Some people say, oh, he's not a point guard. Yes, he was. He was way ahead of his time. One of the greatest ball handlers, greatest passers ever. He would give your favorite point guard 30 if he were playing today. He's going to balance everything out, and he's going to make shots in the process. So I got Pistol Pete as my mac and cheese.
Right. Only guy to score over 40 in a collegiate basketball season over at LSU. So pretty good bucket there. I kind of went with a guy that I would love to have on my team, but would hate to have hate to have to play against, and that's why I'm going with Dennis Rodman for this one. I need some guy who's going to get all the rebounds, do all the dirty work for me, and that's exactly what Dennis Rodman does. Again, I love the idea of having right now. I've got Magic Johnson, Reggie Miller, Tim Duncan, and Dennis Rodman. I've got two guys that would fight anybody any second, and then I've got two more soft-spoken guys. So I think it kind of balances out pretty perfectly with this team so far.
I love it, man. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, Rodman's one of those guys too. He's a seamless fit no matter where he goes. He's gonna get boards, and he's gonna tick someone off in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Defense, right?
Possibly even his own teammates.
Yeah, right. All right, let's finish it up though with pies or dessert. You know, again, I didn't really think about this as much as I probably should have, but in my mind, I was like, okay, pies, desserts. You know, sometimes you might have them right after your meal, maybe alongside your meal, so that could be part of the lineup. But the way I've always had Thanksgiving dessert is to have it well after, maybe not well after, but you let the dinner digest a little bit, and then you break into the pie to end the night on the right note, aka getting a win. So this is, I kind of looked at it as the guy I want to take that last shot, whether they're coming off the bench or not, they're part of this team, whatever. But the guy that I know is going to hit that shot. We're down by 1, 5 seconds left. Everybody in the whole stadium, everybody watching at home knows that he's getting the ball and he's still going to score. That's how I viewed it. Who do you have as your pie/dessert option on this team?
Yeah, for me, I think there's only one option. Look, when you brought up the pie, the closer, the guy who would be doing it, there's only one appropriate person for me. That's Kobe Bean Bryant. Yeah. He's the guy. He's not going to care whether the team wins or loses. He needs the ball in his hands. Failure's nothing to him. He'll shrug it off and make the next one. But 9 times out of 10, I think he's going to make it. So he's my closer. He finishes that out, gets the dessert, gets the win. Everyone goes home happy.
Right. Love that. Well, I unfortunately have to be a bit of a homer, and I'm just going to go with Ja Morant for my pie/closer. You know, every time the Grizzlies are down and they need him to step up, he does. And again, he has the same shot over and over again. He's going to drive to the lane, spin around, push shot, float it right above the center, and it goes in every single time. I've done it. I've seen him do it hundreds of times during the game. I've seen him hit so many game winners. Maybe they're not buzzer beaters, but they are the last shot that goes in. And he's one of the most clutch players in the league that I've personally seen. Had to have a little Memphis Grizzlies pride in there as well. So that's also why I'm going with him for my desserts champion this year.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Ja. Yeah.
This was such a dumb idea.
Like you said, no, Phil. Going off of that though. So you have the plate. What are you drinking? Like what are you washing that plate down with at the end at the end of dinner?
At the end of dinner?
Yeah, like what are you choosing? I'm thinking like, I don't know, for me, like Welch's grape juice.
That's
like
a great choice.
Tea, maybe some pink
lemonade. You
need
something like slightly sweet, right? To go against all the salt that you're probably eating. All right, great stuff. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for playing along, AJ. I thought this was, kind of fun way to end it, and again, kind of bring us into the Thanksgiving holiday. Again, there's going to be a lot of great basketball on. I know football is the big talk of the town on Thanksgiving, but Black Friday, there's a lot of great games, and all weekend long here in West Michigan in particular, we're going to get some snow. So probably best bet to just hunker down. AJ, I know you're going to a Pistons game this week as well.
Oh yeah, I'll be there on Black Friday when they play the Magic in the NBA Cup.
Yeah, no, that'll be a great game. Looking forward to that. Hopefully they're still on that winning streak, and we'll have more reports on the next episode of NB8 right here on Wood TV Plus for you next week. I want to thank AJ so much for joining us, and I want to thank everybody so much for tuning into this latest edition of NB8.